Welcome. Where to first? Buckets. Open to practice. So we moved here about 3 years ago, maybe nearly 4 now. And the garden was a bit of a forest when we moved in. It's just, we always knew that it was going to be a project to reclaim it. And we know it's been loved at some point, but just not for a lot of years. Well, I didn't realise at the time quite how much time gardening would take. Like the idea of having the garden and growing my own food, but I didn't really know anything about it. So I guess the first few years, the energy's been spent exploring the lakes, and now I've got a bit more time and I really want to figure out how to make this garden work.
Behind the scenes.
This is the man who keeps the house together.
Someone's got to keep this place ship-shape.
The garden is about 30 metres in length. It's very long and narrow, and it's got many, many layers. I think probably about 6 or 7. And I feel like we're slowly working up the layers. So let me show you some of what we've done so far. So this is my pot army, which is just the little things that aren't quite ready to put out yet. I've got some sunflowers. These are the sunflowers, which, see, the slugs are demolishing them. I did have probably about 20 pots of these initially, and then the slugs have just one by one decimated them. But I feel like there's safety in numbers here. I might get a few sunflowers. So we did the patio out of, again, this light blue slate was just all over the garden. So we wanted to use it because it is cheaper than buying stone, which turns out is very expensive. So Matt and I did this and kind of levelled it all out, put the sand on top ready to lay the slabs on. It turns out that wood is also very expensive, so we wanted to use what we had. So Matt just found these bricks in the garden and we made a little bench, which I feel like is kind of the theme of the whole garden, is try and use what's here, not spend too much money, and kind of make it nice but not really worrying about making it too neat or modern or polished. So yeah, this bit feels nice, right? Up through the jungle. I keep wanting to trim this back, but then every time I do there's like a bee on the flowers and I feel too guilty. I've noticed we've got our first pea. What a great day to be here. Second, oh my God, look how many there are. So this is like the grassy bit, and when we moved in there was a trampoline here, so it was just completely moss under there. So the grass has done quite well, but as you can tell we do have a weed problem, which I don't have the time or energy to have got on top of yet. So we really want to be able to grow some of our own fruit and veg, maybe even get some bees or chickens one day, who knows. But I think it's becoming even more important to me these days to know where food's coming from, trying to do things organically without weed killer and slug pellets and everything. We'll see how we go with that. The slugs do seem to decimate most of my produce, but we've also not got too much light. There's quite a lot of big trees on the west side of the garden, and then there's the house one side and a hill on the other, so it kind of gets intermittent sunlight at best, so it is hard to grow in some places, but I'm hoping we can still find something to grow, even if that is a chicken. It doesn't require direct sunlight. Look at the mould, it's grim. So I've taken out loads of floorboarding like that, which is covered in mould. We've already taken one lot to the tip, we've got another lot to take, and then there was rubber underneath, which is all corroded, and then there's cement and stone underneath, fortunately. The shed was left full of stuff, I will use a nice word for it, which probably was in my little car 5 or 6 trips to the tip with other people's stuff. It's just very mouldy. Everything in it was broken or just very old, and some of it, I think now, probably illegal. But as a whole structure, I think it's quite sound as it just moves when I touch it. I did buy the wheelbarrow, however I now realise that all the steps are really too steep to pull the wheelbarrow up them with anything in it without it all falling out. It's just a nice centrepiece really for this area. What was here was weeds about yay high. Just a continuation of weeds. So I tried this as a veg bed last year, but it turns out it's a very shady area. So most things I planted in it died. Compost heap! I said now we get into the exciting bit. Basically, have one there, with a little fence in between. Green plums. So I told somebody about the plum tree the other day and they asked me what kind of plum it was, which I did not realise there was more than one kind of plum. So it's still identified as just a plum tree. But if all goes well, I'll have at least 4 courgettes.
Have you ever had a successful courgette?
I've not, no. None.
Not yet.
Not yet. Maybe there's something that will thrive in a polytunnel. So the first year we've got black currants, so they're just ripening and there's a few that are ripe. Still a bit bitter. Hopefully they get a bit less bitter. I think we've got some red currants on the end. When they arrived here, so they were like this big, literally twigs. My mum drove them here in the car, so they were literally just twigs for about 7 hours and then we put them in the ground. Last year they were just establishing themselves, and this year we've got fruit for the first time. Yay! We thought that doing some videos might be a fun way to document what we're doing and actually remember what it originally looked like, because I'm terrible at taking any before and after pictures. Just to document the process, and I'm very much learning along the way, and so it's kind of nice to share that with the world.